When I first got to Cambridge, I realised we're going to have to work hard to do well here. But I thought that there was such an opportunity to do more than just the curriculum there. When business took off, I spent more time on that. And then I felt a lot of pressure actually when I left uni and decided to go full-time in the festival.
Chris Jammer.
The reason why we're having a great time.
Like the last few years doing festivals have been really tough. I've learned a lot about the wider industry and how the music industry operates. We sold part of the business to Sony over COVID as well, so I've been able to see that, and then the live event industry itself. So I'm having a great time with it, and I think there's still more we can do, but I think I need to expand my horizons slightly because, as I say, like this is kind of a big redefining moment because a lot of this has been done with friends and I've lived my life with my best friends doing this. Is this what I really want to do forever?
Welcome to the Redefined podcast brought to you by the One Club, the world's first invite-only digital private members club. The ambition of this podcast is to explore the untold stories of entrepreneurs, athletes, influencers, and more.
I guess, Chris, before we jump in, this whole series is about redefinition. So I guess, what does redefinition mean for you?
Cool, you went deep straight away.
Well, we have to go deep straight away.
I think redefinition for me is changed over the years. A lot of my career I've been redefining myself based on what others see of Chris, and that's taken many different kind of it's formed itself in very many different ways. But I think redefining is an internal process, and it's kind of evaluating where you're at with life and looking to see where that's going to take you into the future. And I think it's something that we should all go through multiple times during this existence we have here.
Has that definition changed, I guess, because you went through a redefinition phase during childhood as well, right? So has that definition changed throughout your life?
Yeah, totally. As I said, there was a period of my life, probably 18 until quite recently, where I was redefining for what others saw of me, and yeah, I mean, there's multiple places in this story where we could probably touch on where I've decided to change what I'm doing, what direction I'm in, but there has always been constants with that, and I think it's about kind of trying to tell that story and move forward with purpose and progress.
Was university one of those phases?
University was. Yeah, it was a redefinition. I think I went to Cambridge Uni, I studied land economy. I went there because my family had gone to Cambridge, fourth generation actually at that college. My dad went there, my mum and her dad and her father. So I was always built up to go there in a way. I went to state school, earned my place in it. It wasn't the kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It was based. I got there on merit. I did well at school. I tried very hard and worked very hard. But when I got there, I realised that I don't know if this was actually for me. I felt like a bit of an oddball. There wasn't many people from state school there, and I had very different interests to what everyone else wanted to do. I studied land economy because I thought I wanted to be a banker, but actually I had no interest in that at all. It wasn't the path I wanted to choose, and hence why I've ended up in this current field of career.
So when did you kind of decide you wanted to go, I guess, against the grain, I guess, because you, as you said, generations, you went to Cambridge Uni, and I guess that you went to Cambridge with the ambition of becoming a banker, but that's not what happened. So at what stage in your life did you decide, at university, did you decide to go against the grain?
I think it was probably in my second year when everyone was applying for their banking internships. I mean, when I first got to Cambridge, I realised we're going to have to work hard to do well here. But I thought that there was such an opportunity to do more than just the curriculum there. And it was in my second year where I really decided that I'm not going to just be what my family or my dad wanted me to be. And I just started running kind of club nights and done my first festival. So there was a route that I felt more comfortable with me, and I didn't have to fall into this hamster wheel, which I kind of see it as. But it was second year of university for sure.
Was there any like pressure, I guess, like from parents or external, like society? Like you go to Cambridge and some things kind of expected of you, right? To become a certain profession. Was it difficult, I guess, like pivoting away from that?
Yeah, definitely. I think I felt pressure at a number of points. I think I stopped caring as much about my studies. I went in there with the ambition to get a first and did really well in my first year. And then when business took off, I spent more time on that. And then I felt a lot of pressure actually when I left uni and decided to go full-time in the festival. Living at home, not making much money at all, my dad just seeing me almost throw this amazing opportunity away.
Was he angry?
I mean, he wasn't angry, he was just more like, I could feel, he's a Nigerian dad, I don't know if anybody here understands, but like, I'd done all that work to get to where he wanted me to be, and then it was just like, what are you doing? At the time when I left uni, I could only afford to, I didn't even have a monthly wage, I was taking home about 300 quid a month out of the business and trying to make ends meet. But I was enjoying what I was doing, and I think after a while, the festival got to a level where he could come and see that I was onto something. And then once he saw that, the pressure kind of subsided, and I owe a lot to him for that, because it's not easy as a Nigerian parent to let your child go off.
But before we go into that, I guess, like, what is the story behind Strawberries and Cream for people who don't know?
So Strawberries and Cream was basically me and a group of friends trying to bring something different to Cambridge. So when I got there, there was club nights happening, but it was all kind of like Arctic Monkeys and ABBA, and it wasn't for me. And I'd taken a year off. I'd been in the London music space, and I felt at the time that there was a real shift in what popular music culture was going to be about. And this was kind of at the time when grime music was just about taking off. So we were in there with a lot of artists. We were booking people like the likes of Big Nasty you see on TV all the time. We booked him for about a couple hundred quid to play at our show. Lethal Bizzle, Temper T, these sort of like household names now, but at the time they were still very much underground. So we were bringing that sound to Cambridge. We're running weekly club events, number of weekly club events, and then Cambridge at the end of year there's something called May Week. So everyone basically lets their hair down and go crazy for a week, and the colleges put on these really grand balls. You pay like £250 a ticket, you have like oysters and champagne, and they book amazing artists, and it's all black tie, and it's all very prim and proper and formal. And I was just like, let's just do something a little bit more accessible, cooler. And then, I started selling tickets to Strawberries and Cream Festival, which I didn't have land booked, I didn't have artists booked, I didn't have anything booked. I just knew I could sell tickets, so we sold tickets to this event that was happening. Very Fire Festival-ish, actually, when I tell this story. But the money was coming in, and off that we could book. So and the first event was a great success. I think Dave in the audience was there at my first one. I was one of the more drunk people on site at the time, but we were onto something, and the city seemed to be receptive to it.
What did the first festival look like? I've seen some photos. It looks really makeshift, but that's the beauty of it as well, right?
Yeah, the first festival, the stage was about the same size. I could touch the top of the stage with my hand. I was making the Strawberries and Cream signs in my uni room. It was all like we put everything together. I was moving toilets around. I was putting up the fence line. We were getting the bars in. We actually thought we could do all the food on site, and thought for some reason that everyone on site was going to want 2 burgers and a hot dog. So I ordered thousands of burgers and ended up with thousands of burgers left in the fridge at the end of the day. But you learn. But we were literally, we did everything at that time.
There's so many things that can go wrong with the festival, right? There's just so many small, Chris and I were talking about, I guess, events and planning things before. And personally, I've planned things so much smaller, and still there's so many small logistical things that can go wrong, last minute. And this was the first time you were doing it, right? And you had all these people that had bought tickets. So did anything go wrong? Was it all okay? Apart from the burger situation?
Apart from Burgergate, yeah. I think it was a successful event, and we'd done something quite unique, and it allowed us to build year on year from that. And I think the thing with us, we were organic with our growth. We didn't try and overshoot the mark. In our second year, we actually booked Skepta for. Most people know who Skepta is. We only paid about £5,000 for him at the time. Now I tried to book him last year, and he was multi-million for a show, and we booked him just as his come up was happening, he just dropped his album Shutdown, which went to #1. He was performing on stage at the Brits with someone I can't really name anymore. But he had kind of taken off, and he shot our ticket sales through the roof. But we had a capacity of 2,500. He would have probably sold more than that at the time, but we just stuck to that and kind of grew within our means. And that was the case the whole way through until more recent years.
And I guess like what was so you talked about like I guess what could have gone wrong, but what were the other sort of like major challenges after the first one, like when it came to actually like doing the second one and scaling up?
There is more financial risk on all of them. I think when there's a big swing on it, you have to hit ticket targets. That's always a big worry doing every event. I mean, you'd be here all night if I go into what could go wrong with the festival. Anything can go wrong at any time. There's so many people under your kind of care that you have to look out for on the day, but just in the lead up to it, you'd have to be specific and ask, but yeah, anything can go wrong with the festival. When
you first started, you started with, I'm assuming, like uni friends, right? But when you wanted to kind of like more formalize it into a legitimate business, was it challenging, I guess, working with friends? You know, I have a lot of friends within business, they started with friends and then ended up falling out, or it goes the other way, like sometimes it's really successful. So what was the experience there?
We've been very lucky with how this. We actually all became friends through the club nights. So actually, my best friend Priye at the time, well, he's still my best friend, but he didn't like me because he was one of the only black guys at Cambridge, and then I came along and he thought I was going to steal all his girls, and he was like, "This guy can't be involved." Little did he know later that I didn't swing that way, so we ended up being best mates anyway. But we formed our friendship through business, and there's always been a real level of respect there. In more recent years, as the business has grown, it's become more challenging, and people want different things from their life going forward from that. So, I mean, this year more so than ever, we've kind of not been aligned in where we want the business to go, and that's been tough. But we've formed such a strong bond that we never really. I've never fallen out with anyone from the business, and that's been a good strength of ours.
So I guess that leads me on to where do you want the business to go? Where do you want Strawberries and Cream to go next?
To be honest, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve with Strawberries and Cream. We're a national festival, kind of, it's a mainstay in the festival circuit. I've done some groundbreaking projects. I've worked with some amazing brands. I've booked everybody in the UK that I wanted to book. So if it didn't come back tomorrow, I wouldn't cry over it. But in saying that, there's so much more I want to do with the brand outside of just a festival. We always do smaller touch point activations throughout the year. I'd love to build it into an online platform. I'd love to take it globally. And all those discussions are happening, but again, we have to all align on where we want to go. And also, it's not just Strawberries and Cream in our business anymore. There's the Cambridge Club as well. So that takes up, it's a bigger festival now than Strawberries and Cream, so it takes up a lot of time.
And you have this other venture as well, Safe Spaces. So yeah, what's that all about as well? I know we talked before, and I know it's a project you're like massively proud of.
Yeah, so the Safe Spaces project was something I coined over COVID. Basically, we've always pushed a gender balanced lineup because the industry it struggles with putting enough female talent on the bill. So since 2018, we've always had an equal balanced lineup. But I wanted to take that further, and I was actually made aware of some statistics that 40% of women go to live events are sexually harassed in some way. So, as a guy, I wasn't aware of that, and I wanted to do something that addressed it. So I got in touch with the UN Women, and it just so happened that they were pushing a Safe Spaces Now program in music, and we ended up being their flagship, their pilot for what a safe space in music should look like. So. We came up with a whole PR campaign where we got some of the biggest names in music: Eddie Goulding, Mabel, Clara Amfo, loads of people to basically sign our letters to the industry, outlining what was wrong here and what we could do for it. And then off the back of that, set out 4 ways in which our festival would become a safer space. And then rolled that campaign out, and now it's been adopted a similar version of it has been adopted by over 100 festivals last year, and we're still like kind of at the forefront of driving that change. So for me, that was a massive achievement because people at our festival genuinely felt safer, and that as an event organizer, that's something that I was incredibly proud of. Yeah,
that's absolutely amazing. I know loads of businesses talk about stuff like this, but rarely do they move the needle like that. So I guess like how did you move the needle? Obviously you did the partnership with the UN, but it must have been incredibly difficult to do that.
It was one of the toughest things I've ever done. Just because working with an organisation like that, there's a lot of red tape, and I've had all these grand ideas and had to scale them back. But it was because I was so passionate about it and wanted to really be a driver of this change. I was working overtime on making it happen. And there were many moments where my team were like we can let this go. Like, don't happen. But I was like, we're so close. We created such impact with it that I just pushed it through, and I was really glad that I did.
And like practically, I guess, did you set out like templates, I guess, for like other festivals to follow suit? Like, I guess you made it open source in that sort of way. Yeah. So I mean, my plan actually was to create a kind of festival-wide body with it, and I wanted, the idea was to get everybody behind the same sort of 4 pillars. What I did afterwards, I ended up doing a lot of consulting and speaking and getting and sharing my knowledge with it, but trying to get all these different festivals and corporations behind the same voice was quite tough. And also getting the UN to move at the speed that they needed to move at for the next year was very difficult. So at least we've kind of got the blueprint, and they moved from that. But in my ideal scenario, we would have had this kind of blanket policy across the UK festival space, which potentially still happen. But yeah, it was a tough ask. You ready for another deep question? Why do you think because loads of people obviously do festivals, loads of people build businesses, but I guess why do you put it on yourself to have this level of responsibility where you try to make changes in the industry where, it might not potentially lead to more immediate profits, but and it's not just this, it's also LGBT and other issues that you're very vocal on. So what makes you feel that urge in order to actively make a change? I feel like festivals are like a microcosm of wider society, and they're also a place where you can really shift culture and reach more people than are just on your site because of social media effectively. So I feel like we've got a duty to really put our identity and thought into this event that we're creating. And just for me, it's just so important that these issues are spoken about here because they do reach wider society. Like, people do talk about the fact that we've booked gender balanced lineups, and then you see other festivals moving in that space. I think you can shift industry through what we're doing, and I think that's why brands pay so much money to be involved with festivals, because you can speak to audiences that are receptive, they're having a good time, but you can also push messages and ideas onto them in your own space that you can control. And you don't often get to control that many people in real life. Was that a motivation of yours, I guess, when you first started this festival and with your endeavors within business? Because that's massively overarching, right? Was it your ambition, or was it just a position that you found yourself in? And it's hang on, this isn't correct. We can change the way things are done now. Yeah, I mean, when I started this, I had no idea I was going to end up doing festivals this long. It was more fun. It was a hobby. It was about bringing people together. It was about sharing different music that other people weren't, that Cambridge wasn't ready for at the time. It was pushing culture onto them. And that was one of the initial bits. But then when I got to over COVID, I had to take a year out. Obviously, the festival industry and live events was significantly damaged by that, and we had a bit of time to reflect and think. And I was like, well, what am I really doing this for? How can this be more than just a fun day out? That's where we landed on the safe spaces. Would you say that's another phase of redefinition in your life? Totally, yeah. And it was the redefinition came from having time to think. Everyone thinks
everyone that sees my Instagram thinks that I literally just turn up on site a week before and this festival just happens. But we work on next year's festival before this year's festival is finished. So there's never really any downtime when you're doing it. I've got a team of 7 that work full time, and you're always rolling and waiting for this event to come. But because COVID happened and we could kind of take stock and reflect on what we're doing, we were able to redefine what we were and redefine what we stood for.
And I guess, like, personally, what's next for you?
It's a big question at the moment. The last few years doing festivals have been really tough. I've learned a lot about the wider industry and how the music industry operates. We sold part of the business to Sony over COVID as well, so I've been able to see that, and then the live event industry itself. So I'm having a great time with it, and I think there's still more we can do, but I think I need to expand my horizons slightly, because, as I say, like, this is a kind of a big redefining moment, because a lot of this has been done with friends, and I've lived my life with my best friends doing this. But recently I've looked at it and said, is this what I really want to do forever? So I'm kind of in a phase of looking left and right and giving myself time that I learned from 2020 to redefine what I want. So it's kind of up in the air at the moment, but we'll see what the future holds.
Because it's a very interesting one, because I've interviewed, a bit more background, I guess, like, I've interviewed people from all different backgrounds. Like, I spoke to one of your friend earlier, saying I've maybe recorded about 200 podcasts in total. Like, it's a lot of people that I've spoken to, and you come from an extremely varied sort of background, and what you're doing now is extremely varied, right? Like, you've been on reality TV, you do modeling, like, you're an advocate for all these different, like, amazing causes, you have a festival. But I guess, like, it's very, when you dig down deeper, it's like what actually motivates you when you're doing all these different things. Yeah,
and I think I was motivated a lot by trying to just create a lasting impact, and doing something that was going to change other people's lives in the process. I think what I've managed to do with the festival primarily is give a platform for people that didn't have a platform there, and go on to do amazing things. And may that be an artist, may that be a video creator, may that be someone that's worked in my artist liaison team that's now running an artist liaison companies, that sort of thing. We can provide a lot of opportunities, and that really motivates me to just keep going on that front. But yeah, as I said, I do vary things. I know I get bored quite quickly. I like to try my hand at things. I like to experience life to the full, and my other endeavours that you mentioned there, modelling, reality TV, DJing, have opened so many doors to different circles that I'd never been in, and that just expands my whole perspective on what life is.
I think that's a brilliant way to end it, actually. So I don't know what time that is, but I think we're good. Do we have time for Q&A? Q&A? Yeah, all good? Okay. Has anyone got any questions? Yeah?
What's been the hardest moment, and how did you overcome it?
The hardest moment for me was last year's festival. I had Lil Wayne booked for his first show back into the UK for 14 years. And we had built our festival around this moment, and we'd spent a lot of money on lawyers, getting his visa sorted, and we'd made national press left, right and centre. And then a week beforehand, Priti Patel denied his visa. So there was a lot of backlash, a lot of personal backlash on me, on my social media and whatnot. And I didn't know if we were going to survive it, but we managed to book another artist and replace it, and the show went ahead and it went really well. But I think that pressure from so many people just gutting for me was personally very tough, because you can't hide behind a business with that. It was like my name was there, and my number was getting out, and people were calling me. I think that personal attack was very tough. I think business-wise you can deal with it because you're protected by a company, but when it's coming directly at you, that was a lot.
When it comes to innovation, what is a good setting for you to get new ideas and get invigorated in terms of ways that you want to change and innovate the company for the future?
It's a lovely question.
That's a lovely question. Yeah, I think again, innovation comes from being able to like take your head out from the day-to-day running of things and giving yourself some space. I like to take myself away and kind of detach from a lot, so I can really think about things, and that's the way I do it. And it's just allowing the business to have like moments where you can just like really focus everybody and like make that the goal for that moment. Is like, all right, we need to think outside the box and think about what's next. But with every business, I suppose you can just get caught up in the day-to-day running. It's the same as life. You can get caught up with the day-to-day running of life, but you have to just set that time apart, I think.
I want to follow up to that lovely question actually. How do you detach? Like that's the word you used from, because there's so much noise. Like it's not just like in your day job, but also on social media, right? Like how do you switch off? How do you detach?
Get rid of the damn phone. When I do detach, I like turn the phone off. Can become so self-consuming. I spend a lot of time on the phone because of work and because of a number of. I need it to survive, but actually to detach, it's amazing. I mean, I'll speak about Shipwrecked. When I went on that, I was 3 months without my phone on a desert island near Fiji. And it was like one of the most surreal experiences just to exist without having to. I had like a Twitch sort of thing that I was going to my pocket to look for my phone all the time, just because we're just so connected to it all the time. But that was probably the best thing I got out of that experience, is just being able to realise you can exist without it, and life goes on.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. Okay, yeah, I've got one question there.
Yeah, great talk, by the way, thank you. I'm also from Cambridge, Chris, and I've been to both your events.
Have you?
Yeah, I've, given my age, it's not bad for Strawberries.
No, not at all.
I've probably doubled the age, but I particularly love Cambridge Club because, a few years ago I'd never even been to a festival, if I'm honest. Now I'm a regular festival goer as a result of your festival, and introduced a load of my friends to it. So you did an amazing job, I have to say. It was exemplary, the whole experience. But I want to know who influences you.
Who influences me? Thank you so much. You've actually made my night with that, and I'm glad you enjoy the Cambridge Club. Who influences me? My influences have changed a lot over the years. There was a phase where I was massively influenced by some of my favourite rappers, like Jay-Z and 50 Cent and Rick Ross, those guys that have kind of taken their career and their music career and taken it into business. More recently, I've been influenced by people that are just genuinely fulfilling their purpose and just doing stuff that makes them genuinely happy, not doing it for anyone else. So I'm always looking for people that are just kind of have found their purpose and are living it. And that I'm looking for more role models in this space, but because they're actually quite difficult to find, I think. But yeah, that's another redefinition, I think.
It's because they might not have a following, right? They might not have. They're harder to find, those people. Like, but you're right. Like, whenever you meet someone and they're genuinely happy in what they're doing, and you can tell that they're fulfilling their purpose, like it's one of the biggest joys in life, I think.
100%.
Yeah, question there.
We have a controversial one.
Sorry, do you mind speaking a bit louder?
Yeah, sorry. You're in the entertainment industry. What's your view on drugs?
Ooh. Safe space.
This is being recorded, just so.
You're running an event, and in the sector you get lots of drugs, and you're running a business. And in London, you go 80% of the people you meet are on something. So, what's your take on it? You don't have to answer.
No, it's all right. I can answer that. I think, as I said earlier, like festivals are a microcosm of wider society. And like you can't expect a festival to take place without that happening. I think we have a responsibility as organisers to acknowledge that and not try and hide from it. I think it's important that you put the appropriate provisions in. I do think, the entertainment industry, the music industry, the live events industry is probably more proportion. There's a high proportion of drugs involved in it because there's people want to elevate their state of enjoyment in a way. But Yeah, I mean, it's something something that's going to happen, and you just have to deal with it and be aware that it's there.
Would you rather my deep questions or that question?
That was tough, that one. Who let him in?
Can I just follow up on it? Because running a business, you need to have a clear mind. And you distract yourself with intoxicants, essentially. But you have to, it's a massive distraction. So do you distract yourself, or do you go out of your way to avoid it? This is a bit of a question.
What's that question? So when I'm working, I think I agree with you. You should definitely have a very clear mind from it. And yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone on my team would ever dare do drugs while working.
There we go. Yeah.
Hi. Do you think, like sometimes when you look at your business, you talk about you want to go further global, right?
Further, sorry?
Please correct me if I'm wrong. You said you want to go further globally with your business, right? Do you think you might go back to the first career which your dad wanted you to be like a banker?
No. No, I wouldn't, because the problem I have with the banking is not the career. It's that I've had the taste of working for myself and creating my own thing, and now working with a big corporation like Sony, I've seen what restrictions do with me. I don't work well with that, and that's just me. I just know that that's not something I'd want to go into, and I can work with big companies, but I always want to be my own boss and have control of my own future. So unless I own a bank, but
Because you said Rick Ross, Jay-Z, because if you look at their careers, right, they started in the entertainment industry, but they've reverse engineered to become sort of like bankers, because they're now in the space of like acquiring other businesses. And if you're an acquirer, you need banking skills, and most of these guys have now become informal bankers. So if looking at that way, do you think, that's why I was asking, do you think they're a banker?
I think I probably have the skill set to do it. I think what's really impressing me about those guys is that they work with people that are better than them in certain spaces. Like Jay-Z is not a lawyer, but he will have the best lawyers in the world. And if I want to end up going into acquiring other businesses, then I'll work with really good bankers. I don't think I need to necessarily teach myself to become a banker, but I would want to inform myself on the basic knowledge to be able to understand what those guys that are better than me are doing on my behalf, you know?
I think the question maybe was like, would you want to diversify into something else?
Oh, 100%. I'd like to diversify into other businesses, and yeah, as I said, like I'm a creative. I envision things. I can see problems and resolutions, but I'm more than humble enough to know where I need support on bits where I'm not that good at, and or not professional in. Like I've come out of uni and never had to work in a professional environment in my life really, and that's led me to have some shortcomings. But at least being aware of them is kind of the first step to be able to overcome that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that was a good question actually.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, well done. Any more? Yep.
How selective are you with the sponsors for your festival? So are they in line with what you believe in, or is it competing?
Yeah. I turned down a lot of sponsors in the last couple of years because I didn't agree with their company policy or morals. I mean, there was a time when I think well, it was poor guys actually. The guys that run Brewdog, their CEO was under a lot of scrutiny because of
James Watt.
Yeah, I mean he's been cleared apparently of all of it since then. But like we had a big deal on the table with that and turned it down. And Tinder actually wanted to sponsor the Safe Spaces Now activation with the UN, but they didn't pass UN due diligence because of the way their company operated, and so we said no to that. And the sponsors definitely reflect the brand, and like I've grown our brand on doing deals with bigger brands. So, I mean, a couple of years ago I did a deal with Doritos on a massive national campaign, and they had no right we had no right doing that deal. We were on billboards all across the country as like the Strawberries and Cream and Doritos, but that positioned us as a bigger player than we were. We've done deals with really cool clothing brands and like football kits with Nike and that sort of thing, but like working with brands that can help elevate us and put us in the right space are super important. I mean, on the Cambridge Club front, that audience really is like a Waitrose audience. So I wanted to, Cambridge Club was quite in its infancy, but I did the deal with Waitrose, and that put that festival in the position where I want it to move forward into. So yeah, I'm selective because they do reflect on where the brand is and what position I want to put it in.
I guess for like people listening, I guess like in the audience, when they're starting their own businesses and they've got certain values like you just expressed there, like I guess how important would you say it is to, I guess, espouse those values in your daily business? Because your audience might not share the same values as you in some ways, or I don't know, maybe they do because you're building it on the same sort of customer persona. But yeah, just like keen to hear your thoughts there.
I'd like to think that our audience see where we come from with it. I think we're quite vocal about we're vocal about issues that I care about. Like for example, we're a safe space for LGBTQ. The UN project was something we're loud about. We support black music, and I feel like our audience, then they do understand that, and our crowd is receptive to that sort of thing. And I think one of the key things we did for the Safe Spaces project is that we made everyone sign a code of conduct when they bought their ticket. So like everyone was faced with seeing what we believed in, and that intention and that like just the awareness then led people to just act differently on site. So I think it's really key for us that we do have a personality behind it. The industry is owned by kind of corporations that don't have much personality behind them, and as long as I'm still in the business, Strawberries and Cream will have my ethos ingrained in it.
How important would you say, sorry, I will like give you a chance to ask questions, but how important would you say is that to like people in the audience like starting their own businesses when it comes to like, yeah?
I think it's about integrity, really. It's like if you're putting your time and effort into something, you want that to be as much of a reflection of yourself as it is. I think if you want to be working on something all the time, you want to believe in it with your whole heart, and it's key. I'd struggle to work on something that I just didn't align with, you know, and I just don't think it would be very successful, because you've got to put everything into a business like that, and being able to align with your own goals and intentions behind it is key.
Completely agree with you. Okay, any more questions? Yeah, one over there.
Excuse me, in the first beginning steps, what was your strategy with marketing to develop your business and get to that having that good reputation and advertising your business and brand and building your brand?
Yeah, sure. So this changes every year as kind of budgets get bigger. At the beginning, it was very guerrilla tactics. It was trying to do everything we still try and do everything on a shoestring, but you're forced at the early stages to be very creative about what can you do for low money that's going to have massively high impact. Even last year, I covered myself in cream and strawberry jam behind one of the Cambridge colleges to kind of get like virality on TikTok. Which didn't cost anything, just my dignity.
But did it work though, or were you just like?
Yeah, the brand were really happy. They loved it. And then so we do. I think there's ways to create like moments that are going to make noise, and I think only until recently we've had like marketing agencies and PR agencies. We've done it all previously in house. It's just. The marketing, you can spend so much money on it, and brands spend so much money on it as well. But you can grow brands with a shoestring. It's just how creative you can be with that.
I always find this quite interesting from like a founder perspective. But what do you reckon what do you think in your journey you've been uniquely good at that you brought to your team that's allowed the whole thing to be a success? And has that changed over time, or have you actively decided to change that?
That has changed over time. At the beginning, I was the face, I was the party boy, I was out everywhere, I was shouting Strawberries and Cream to the rooftops and making friends with everyone and being in every club in London and Cambridge and making sure that you knew that I had a music festival. Over time, that has developed into networking and and building actual relationships and business rapport with people. And I think that's definitely where my skill set is I think I do all the brand partnerships now, so that's kind of my main speciality. And I think brands like the fact that my brand is attached to me. So they're with the source, you know. So I think that's where my key skill is, and it's just being personable and treating people like people rather than treating people like they're part of a corporation. And it's just I get along with people most of the time. I think that's been my lucky thing that I've brought to the business.
Okay, there's one over there.
One last question. I'd like to say, first of all, thank you for hiring artists which are coming up. I grew up in Southern Africa. I'm passionate about economics and community development. People like you who have hired these young artists coming up, let's say, for example, in South Africa, there's what is called Cotton Fest, and then major league DJs who are also making up a vibe in Europe currently. Those guys, they take guys from underdeveloped communities like Soweto who do this piano music genre, and then they hire those guys to come and do open acts. That has reduced crime and also done development where people who can't get jobs because they can't afford to go to university or schools. That has created income for households. And what I wanted to ask from you is what metrics will you be looking at when you're going global? Let's say, are you going to be looking at inequality in certain countries, upcoming artists, or are you going to be looking at how much disposable income and other usual factors? Because there's so much, what you're doing, most people don't know, it's making a good impact in community development. I'd like to say thank you. I grew up in Southern Africa, so I know how much.
Amazing. South African music is actually my favourite genre. South African house and Amapiano. We put a Amapiano stage on 2 years ago where we booked English DJs that were playing that sound because flying people over is obviously a massive cost. But I'm just amazed to see how much that sound has had an impact on the UK space in the last 2 years with major leagues, Uncle Waffles, that sort of it's come from real culture, and I think it's now transcending into mainstream space. I think if I was looking globally, I'd like to go to places where there were music scenes like that. South Africa's been on my list. Nigeria's been on the list. It's places where you can really. My whole brand has been built on bringing up and coming talent, and it's that's the only way we could afford it, to be honest, at the time. And it's just celebrating and championing that underground because we booked Central C for £500. He's now the hottest artist in the UK. He's streaming in America. He's enormous. It's but that for us being part of that journey is so key, and it's giving them the opportunity then to go on and do more. And as I said, that's where I generate a buzz from this from. But going back to your point a little bit. It's also those places need to be ready for this sort of event to go. I've not gone to Nigeria yet because even still putting on a big scale event, the infrastructure isn't quite there. The culture's not quite ready to book tickets in advance and not just turn up at the door expecting to get in, because you end up with problems like they've had in Afro Nation in Ghana. So it's about timing it right and doing it on a scale where that each country's ready for.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Redefined podcast. We want to bring you the best stories from the top changemakers across the globe. To make that possible, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening and leave a comment or review. It really is that simple. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you for the next episode.